So for this warm-up, it says, make a true inequality by dragging the cards. Explain how you know your inequality is true. So to do this, you can really pick whatever you want, but you just want to make sure that this side is going to be less than this side. So I could easily say 1 times -4 is going to give me -4, and then 3 times -2 is going to give me -6, and we know that -6 is less than -4. I could have rearranged it another way, but for example, I could have done take the -4, take the -2. I could have swapped them. And again, this is going to be 1 times -2 is -2, and -4 times 3 is going to be -12. And -12 is less because we always know that the larger the negative number, the less value it has. Okay, on our next slide, we're trying to get greater than 0. So we know we have to add something together and then multiply it by something else. So just make this inequality true. So in my thinking here, I definitely have to have a positive answer. I need a positive answer here. So I could just put in 2, 3, and 6, and that would give me 3 times 2 is 5, times 6 is 30, and that's going to work. But I could have also done something like this, where I did 5 plus -5 plus -4, which is -9, and then multiply that by -1, and that's going to give you a positive answer. So as long as this side is going to be positive, it doesn't matter the numbers I choose, as long as the result is going to be a positive number. So it says here what you created on the previous slide. Edit your expression so it has a greater value. Enter the value of your expression. So I want this to be larger than the 9 that I created. Thinking about what do I want to do with the numbers to get this to be larger than 9? So if I say, take these out, I definitely want to get a positive answer again. So I could just put in 6 and 7, which is 13, multiply that by 3, and that would be 6, 13 times 3 is 39. That's work. Can you create something larger? So I'm going to try it again. And this time, what I'm going to do is try to use my bigger numbers, but the negative version of it. So I'm going to take this -8, put it outside here. I'm going to put this negative here and this negative here. This is going to give me -9 times -8, which is going to give me positive 72. And that's work. So could I go larger? I could try, but 72 is significantly larger than from when I started, so I'm just going to go on to the next puzzle. It says make an expression with the greatest possible value, the greatest possible value. So what I see here is I'm multiplying two numbers together, and then I'm going to add them. So if I want the greatest possible number, I need numbers that are going to be, when I multiply them, will give me a positive, and then I add two positives together. So I definitely don't want to put a negative times a positive plus a negative times a positive. If I do that, I'm going to end up with a negative answer plus a negative answer, and that's going to give me a negative answer. That's not going to be the largest. So again, I'm thinking about what numbers do I want to put in here. And for me, I'm always going to try my negatives, because I know if I multiply negatives together, I can get positive amounts because a negative times a negative gave you positive. So I put in -8 and -4. I'm going to put in -6 and -2, and I'll solve that out. So that's going to give me 8. Well, I know this is positive because it's negative times negative. So that's 8 times 4 is 32. And then plus 6 times 2. 6 times 2 would give me 12. Add those together, and I would get 44. So let's swap these around and think about this. Let's take this one out, put this one over here, put this one here. That's going to give me 48 plus 8, which is going to give me 56. 56 is larger. Could I adjust? Well, I could take this one out and put in my largest positives, like that's going to give me a positive. That's going to give me 48 plus 35, which is going to work out to 83. That seems pretty big, and I'm just going to check it out and see if that's my largest. And it worked. Could I go greater? I think I'm fine with 83, so I'm just going to continue on. Kiri created the expression shown. Offer a hint or a question to help her create the expression with an even greater number. And I think the question I would ask is, why not use the negatives? Because I would remind this person that if we multiply negatives together, we can get positive answers, and those positive answers could be larger than the numbers than you would get just using the positive numbers to start with. So that would be my question. Why not use the negatives? Because a negative times a negative will give you a positive answer. All right, next, we're looking for the largest possible here. So to solve this puzzle, I need to look at and say, what do I need to do first? Well, when you have a setup like this, even though these aren't in parentheses, you need to solve the top first, then the bottom, then divide. So I need to subtract, I need to add, and then I need to divide. So if I'm looking for the greatest, I want the smallest number I can on the bottom. So in this case, I could put 2 and 1. 2 plus -1 would give me 1 on the bottom. And then I need a positive answer up here. So I could just take positive numbers and subtract them, or I could be a little more creative and say, what if I used the negative? Because if I put my largest numbers up here, 7 and 8, ignoring the negative, I can make this become 15. And the way I can get that to 15 is by placing the 8 here. I'm doing minus -8. Minus negative. Subtracting a negative is like adding a positive. So I'm not seeing it as 7 minus -8. I'm thinking of it more as 7 plus 8, which is then going to be 15 over 1, which is going to be 15. And I think that's the largest I'm going to get with the numbers that are available. I could replace it with a -5. That would give me a positive 12. But I think this is a pretty good answer I can put in. And to confirm it, I'm just going to check my work. And it's correct. Could I go larger? I mean, maybe I could have, but I think 15 is a pretty good answer for me to go with. Next, okay, I need to follow the order of operations. So I need to solve this top part first, solve this bottom part, and then divide. But then I have to follow order of operations on top. So I need to come up with a number, call it the box, plus 2 numbers multiplied, and then I'm going to subtract on the bottom. So here's my order of operations. I need to multiply these two numbers together, add this number, subtract these, and then divide. Let me say that again. Even though there's no parentheses here, I put it in to emphasize where I'm going to start. Order of operations says you got to do the top part of this, the bottom part of this, and then divide. But when I solve this, I have to start off order of operations again. So I need to do multiply two numbers together, add a number to it, and then subtract these two. So again, I want the smallest possible number I want on the bottom. The smallest possible number on the bottom. Okay? So to accomplish that, I'm just going to look at my numbers here. So if I put in 2 and negative 2, that's going to give me negative 4. Could I go smaller? Well, what if I put in 2 and 3? 2 and 3, that's going to be negative 1. Or I could swim around and make it 2 minus 3. That gives me positive 1. So I'll leave it as positive 1 for now. And now I need to build something on the top. So I need a large number here plus something else. So since this is positive, I need this top part to be positive. But remember, I can use negatives to get positive answers. So I could do negative 4 times negative 5, which is 20, positive, and then multiply that by 5. So that's going to be 20. Not multiply, sorry. Add 5. So that's 20 plus 5 divided by 1. 20 over 1 is going to give me an answer. I'm sorry, 25 over 1 is going to give me 25. But could I have done a better job by swapping out the order to make negatives instead? So let's see. Let me take this out. I'm going to put this in here, put this in here. I'm going to, that's a negative answer. So now I could swap this out and put this one here and swap this one out and put this one here. If I do this, I now have 25 negative plus negative 4, which would give me negative 29. So rather than have the 25, I would have negative 29 divided by negative 1, which would give me positive 29. I think that's probably one of the larger answers I could get. And that works. So you can see by just thinking about the problem, you have different options by saying, well, do I want the bottom to be a negative? Do I want the top to be a negative? Because then they will cancel out to get a positive. So describe something you learned today that might help someone else as they complete their puzzle. I'm just going to give the book answer here. Something you might have learned from this, I hope. Two ideas you could have walked away with. One, I learned that you can make a fraction of value bigger by making the denominator smaller. And two, I remembered that you can make a large positive number by multiplying two large negative numbers. I think these are two good things that you could have put down for your answer. And then finally, we go to our cool down. And we go to our cool down. We're just going to say, how do I solve these? So I have negative 6 plus 2. Negative 6 plus 2. I have 6 negatives. I'm adding 2 positives. Let's use the anchors and floats. I have 6 anchors. I add 2 floats. That's going to leave me with 4 anchors. I have 6 minus negative 2. Well, subtracting a negative is like adding a positive. And that's going to give me 6 plus 2, which is 8. I'm multiplying these two numbers together. They're both negative. That means I'm going to get a positive answer. So I just multiply the numbers as they are. 6 and 2 gives me 12. And then finally, this says the opposite of 6 divided by 2. Well, 6 divided by 2 is 3. So the opposite would be negative 3. And those should be your answers.